get some more folks built up in here so we can get started on this wonderful Thursday evening. Those of you who don't know, I'm Jody with ARC Racing. Of course, I hope you already knew that if you've been watching my videos. Wasn't with y'all last week. I had a prior engagement that come up, and I couldn't do the show last week. So I figured I'd come on and do one again, right before Christmas. I want to go over a few things tonight that I get quite a few calls on about modified engines. How do you choose the right parts and this, that, and the other. It's fairly simple stuff. You just gotta think about sizes of everything from start to finish. I'll just kind of ramble on a little bit till we get a few more folks on here. But this weather change is affecting my allergies a lot, so I may cough a little bit tonight. But anyway, we get a lot of calls about the modified stuff, and people confused on what parts actually increase the power of the engine. What helps this part, what helps that part, and it's really when you start talking about a modified, and I'm going to be talking basically Bradley, you got your priorities in order. I'm going to like that one. That's the first one I've ever liked live. You got your priorities straight there, buddy. I'm proud of you. Anyway, I made me lose my train of thought here. But I'll be talking about modifieds tonight, and we'll be talking primarily about the Honda, the Clone, the Predator style engines. But this information pretty much carries from one engine to the other, even the flatheads and stuff. But when you want to talk about modified stuff, you need to understand that modifieds are a package deal. Not one or two parts or upgrades is really going to make a huge difference when it comes to modifieds. You starting with basically the carburetor. To me, that's one of the most important things on a modified or any engine, race engine in general, is the carburetor, because that's the initial breath it takes comes through that carburetor. He told me, oh my God, that's a true story. I did tell her that on our very first date. I told a lot of girls that on our very first date. I had a lot of first dates because of what I told her right there. I don't want to get off into talking about my life here, but that's a pretty funny story. I would tell first dates with a girl, I would take them to a restaurant, and I would ask them that question right there, or tell them that don't make me choose. That way, in case she didn't want to continue the date, I wasn't out a whole lot of money. But luckily, she hung around. We ate dinner, and I took her to putt-putt and kicked her butt in putt-putt. Anyway, back to the story again. Modifieds, carburation. We get people call up all the time, and they just want to, they're going to build a modified. We want to do this, we want to do that. And the first thing they do is just order the biggest cam that we sell. That's only part of the equation. A cam's purpose in a modified engine is to time the valve train in coordinates with the piston moving up and down. That's all a cam does. It allows more air in at certain degrees of rotation, and less at others, and vice versa. That's where your center lines and all that stuff. I'm not going to really get into that tonight. I'm just going to get in about trying to choose the right parts with your modified engines. But people call up and just want to order the biggest cam they can get and put in a basically stock engine with a bone stock carburetor. That's not really going to give you a huge performance advantage. It may even decrease the performance, if you get too big a cam. Like some people want to get to 308 and throw it in a bone stock clone engine with some 18-pound springs, and not really the right thing to do. To build a true modified. You need, a cam is an important choice. carburation, like I said, to me is the most important choice. And then you've got, head work, your valve size and your port work and all with modifieds. Um, you know, these little carburetors right here, this is just a bone stock, right out of the box, 615 carb. Well, it's probably about 611, 612 right out the box. It has not been CNC machined yet, I don't think. I just picked it up off the table. But if it has been, then David Simpson, you in trouble, because this was laying in a place it wasn't supposed to be. But anyway, you get that big 308 cam, you're going to increase the lift, you're going to increase the duration, your center lines and all, but it's probably not going to make this carb, work the way it needs to. It's going to throw the fuel signal up and down. You're not going to get enough air into the engine using this, that you would, using a 390. This is why I tell people carburation to me is the most important part of a modified engine. This is a 615 Venturi. This is a 390 that I've worked. This one's bored out to 900. That's like I tell people, when they call up and want to order the biggest cam we got and still use a stock carburetor, I tell them that's like, you working out your legs and, doing squats and lifts and then trying to run a marathon breathing through a straw. You're not going to get the air intake you need to truly modify the engine. So to me, carburation is the first place I look when going to a modified. You want to, it's got to breathe. I mean, that's the initial breath. That's the first place the air comes through. So that's got to be, one of the truest parts as far as the way it's worked and the way the fuel signal all is in the carburetor. And head work and valve size and all play a big part in that. It goes through the carburetor first, then it comes through the head. It comes down to, we went over porting, AKRA porting a few weeks ago, and I showed you, places in there to port. That was for basically stock engine. Now, when you're talking modified engine, you're going to do a little more extensive porting. And, when you're dealing with a standard clone head, you're very, very limited on your valve size here. The clone comes with a 25 millimeter intake and a 24 millimeter exhaust. That's the standard of the clone engine. The 212s and the Predators, 212 Predators, the Hemis and non-Hemis, they come with a 27 on the intake side and a 25 on the exhaust. They got a little bigger valves and a little bit bigger ports. Those are, to me, better engines to start with when you're going to build a modified, because you've got a bigger platform. You got more CCs, and on the Hemis and the Gen 3 non-Hemis, you've got a much better head. But if you're going to stay with the stock size valves, I tell people extensive porting. You got to go in there and really, really port it, not really make it bigger, but really port it good so that you can get good straight line flow and out of your seats, because that's the limiting factor. And when you're dealing with like stock appearing modifieds, whether it's the clone or the Predator, the valve size is very important. And with my engines, it's very, very important because you're dealing with, most of the time you have to run a bored out stock carburetor. And when people talk about the size of the carburetor, a 615 or it's a 625 or a 675, they're talking about the venturi of the carburetor. If you look in there, you see the circle in the very center. That's the smallest part of the carb. That's the venturi. That's where the air goes through the carburetor. It's big up front. Then it's got that small area in the middle, and then it's big in the back again. When that air goes into the carburetor, it goes through that small hole and it speeds up as it goes through it. That's what creates the vacuum to pull the fuel up through the E-tube or either out of the low-speed jet. And the bigger you go with your venturi, especially with these, the more work you have to do on the air bleeds and all to make them work right. But that's another video for another day. But when we come to stock appearings, I personally, don't like putting big valves, really big valves, in a stock appearing head. I'll go to a 27, maybe a 28 millimeter, which, we have heads on the shelf that come for the clone, and these will go directly on a Hemi or on one of the Honda clones, this got 27 and 25 millimeter valves in it, or the valve seats already. So you can upgrade your clone to bigger valves, or if you don't want to, some people don't like using the Hemi head because it don't have a small chamber on it. I like the Hemi head. I use it a lot, but for the people that don't, that want to change out their Hemi heads or whatever, we have these heads available on the shelf. It's a part number DJ 1115BV for big valve. It's got a 27 and a 25. This is what I would start with on a clone if I was using it to go to a stock appearing or a more outlaw modified. But matching your carburetor size to your port size to your valve size is very, very important. True, bigger valves will flow more. True, a really big hogged out port will flow more. However, you still are dealing with dry air versus wet air. When you're flowing something, a lot of people just what I call dry flow. They just use straight air, and it measures how much air comes through it, and they pick the volumes up and down or whatever, and they get these really high flowing heads. But then when they go to put it on the engine, they may not perform the way they expected them to. You got to continue to deal with something that's called port velocity, and also air tumble, because the air don't just go through it straight, it tumbles, and you got to, if it does start tumbling, you've got to, know where to cut it, how to cut it and how to shape it to keep that tumble going and to keep the port velocity up. Because if you've got, a big valve in here, like a big 30 or 28, and it's really big ported, and you've got this little stock appearing carburetor on it, it may be bored out to 650, 675, 680, but still you've got this humongous valve and this really big port, and it's going to make the fuel signal in this carburetor go crazy. You may have a ton of fuel signal at the bottom and completely lose it at the top, or vice versa. It does some crazy stuff. You just really can't keep the fuel signal and the fuel curve and the carburetor set right. That's why I tell folks, when I'm building a stock appearing, I rarely go over a 28 millimeter valve. Rarely. If I do, that's where different cam profiles come in, and I'll get into that in a few minutes. But like running these big 390s, I really like running these carburetors on methanol. I ain't got them quite figured out on gas yet, I'm not going to lie to you. I worked on one tonight, and I got aggravated with it and come inside. But on methanol, these are really good carbs if they're set up right. And you get a lot better, like I showed you a while ago, a lot more flow through here. This is a 900 Venturi that I bore out and polished. This carb was actually, if you can tell, still got dirt and stuff on it. This is one that somebody left methanol in for like a month and a half, and it messed it up. And I've tried to clean it out, fix it, just still won't run right. But when you get into carburetors like this, you typically want a little bit bigger valve. But I always like to keep my carburetor Venturi size smaller than my actual valve size. Even if I'm building a big open, type outlaw engine, if I'm gonna run a 30 millimeter valve or a 32, I'm gonna have, a 28 to a 30 millimeter carburetor. I like to keep the carburetor just a little bit smaller, because that really helps that bottom end fuel signal. It helps the carburetor take off really good. Because if you get, a really big carburetor, like a 30 millimeter carburetor on a 30 millimeter valve, it'll probably run great, but your fuel signal your fuel curve and all might not stay the same on, if the carburetor's bigger than the valve. It can be the same size. I like to keep mine a millimeter or two smaller if I can than the actual valve size. That's kind of hard to do on these stock appearings, because, these things, 615 is only, 15.6 millimeter. That's small. I think that's what a 15.6, 15.8, something like that's what a 615 is in millimeters. But when it comes to heads, just try your best to keep your valve size within a few millimeters, if you can, of the carburetor size. I know it's hard to do with these stock appearance, but it really pays off. When I build engines with these, and I use a 27 millimeter valve, I do some what I call moderate porting, a lot more than the AKRA porting, but not quite all out open porting, as I still want to keep my velocity at a certain area, and you still got to worry about tumble. That's a big thing that a lot of people do and research and all is the way tumble and all. I got ways that I check that, but when it gets to valve sizes, we carry a lot of different size valves. Like I say, we got the heads that come with 27, 28. We got valve sizes that go 28 up to 32. Something that we carry fairly common on the shelves. And then I said a while ago that people call up and want to order the biggest cam that we got and put it on a stock carburetor. Well, I also get stuff on the other end of that. I got people that'll say they got a head, they got 32 millimeter intake valve in it, and I'm sorry, they'll have a stock head with 25 millimeters, and they have this big gigantic Tilliston on it, and they wonder why they can't get the Tilliston to tune right. And the Tilliston's way too big for the head, for the valve size, and it's important to keep that stuff, keep it kind of halfway matched. But then you get into, when you go to the bigger valve stuff, that's where cam profiles really play an important part. When it comes to cam profiles like these stock appearings, I prefer running a moderate lift with higher duration. I try to keep my stock appearing stuff. Hold on a minute. Get a couple questions here. For some reason, they're not showing up like they usually do. 265 lift Superbox cam with dual springs, too much for it. The Superbox cam, if you run a 1-to-1 rockers, I don't think I'd run dual springs on it. I'd run some, shimmed up 26s or 36s, because that cam don't really need dual springs unless you're running ratio rockers on it. But as long as you don't shim up the dual springs, you just put them straight, on the head, it should be fine. But that cam originally was made for 615 style carbs. 615, 650, 680s, they'll work really good on that. But the cam I prefer to use on stock appearing carbs is the Dyno F275, the NR 274, the Isky Black Mama is the 274. It's a what I call moderate lift, which is 275 to 285, and high duration. They're 258, 259 duration. That they got fast ramps on them. You'll need a little more spring. You'll need dual springs on those, in my opinion. But they help these stock appearing carburetors like this. They help them. They keep the fuel signal where it needs to be, and it just makes them work better. Not saying that a 308, or something like that can't work as good, but it takes a whole different setup. And with the way I set stuff up, I've gotten more power, a longer curve. It starts making really good power and makes it all the way to 8,000 or above with like the F275 or the NR or the Black Mama style cam. But the 265 is a good cam. I like running it. Actually, that's the cam I like running in the Hemi engines. When I build a stock appearing or even an Outlaw with 390s, I like running the 265, the CM cam from Dyno with 1-to-2 or 1-to-3 rockers on it. That's a good combination. It gives you really good bottom end, and it'll still make power, above 8,000, 8,500 if you want it to, with ratio rockers on it. Do I got any 27 valves in stock? Dakota, I've seen you ask me that a couple times, and buddy, I'm sorry I hadn't got back to you. When I read it, something comes up and I walk away, and I hadn't answered you back, and I apologize to you for that. But no, we have not got them, and I don't know why. They've been ordered. I guess it's just that time of the year or whatever. But that's why I don't have none here with me. I've got a 25, a 28, and a 32. We was out of 27s. I didn't want to bring a used one, because these are so shiny and pretty. These SI valves, good valves. Shannon Portwood, sup. Yeah, sup. Currently had the 1-to-3 rockers on them. Yeah, that's a good combination, Dakota. That one, like I say, 1-to-3 with 265. You put a good 390 on that, methanol, some good head work, you have a good little engine there. That's a good little package. I've got to where I run that a lot, especially with my 390s. And like I say, with stock appearing carbs, I still I still like my high duration cams. They work better. And I've got quite a few Outlaws out there, bigger stroker Outlaws with 390s on it. With the F275 with you're reading something else. The F275 with 1 to 3 rockers. That works good, but when you put ratio rockers on the F275 cam, these high duration cams, it's rough on the lifters. It'll wear the lifter bosses out in a while. In fact, on my personal page, I may have put it on the ARC page a few weeks ago. I had one of my personal engines that been sitting on the shelf for a while, the Outlaw engine. I threw it on the dyno, was gonna fire it up and just make sure it still run good because it's been sitting there for about 6 months. I was gonna go run it one Saturday night and I fired it up and it was knocking and it rattling bad and I couldn't figure out what it was, so I brought it back and looking down through the head and noticed that the lifters was rocking back and forth and that cam had wore them out. So that's one of the downfalls for the high duration cams is if you run with ratio rockers, it's a little rough on the lifters. It's gonna wear them out. It's gonna wear the block out. It ain't gonna do it fast. That engine I rebuilt it twice, so it's got 25 or more races on it. At 84, 8,500 RPMs. But it's rough on them. As Ark, I guess you're saying as Arkansas messed around with ARC, I'm sorry. Messed around with electronic fuel injection. No, I hadn't. Not sure if fuel injection is good for stuff like this. I really don't know. It may be on like 390s and stuff, but I don't see it, on these small ones. I don't know. I've never worked with them. I know people that have. I can get you some names. I can't think of them right now. I have to look through my notes and see who it was. Will stock Honda valves fit in a Predator head? Michael, if you have a Generation 1 Predator, which those are hard to find. They hadn't made those in several years. The Generation 1 came with either a JT style head on it or an RTC 2, I believe. They had the same size valves as a clone. It would take the same ones, but those are hard to find because once the Hemi and the Gen 3 come out with bigger valves in it, bigger seats, people threw them heads away. But it will on the older ones, just not the new, not the Hemi or not the Gen 3 RTC 6, 8 or 9 head. It won't fit those. Mr. Will Ivy. Let's see what he got to say. That's a good setup there, a 356. Cut the head, dual springs. I'm assuming you're talking a 356 with 1-to-1 rockers. That's a good combination. A 356 is a good cam. If you like to turn one, that's a good one. It'll turn. I don't think that cam will ever quit. You get a good carburetor behind it. Yeah, especially a 380. I guarantee that engine will turn real hard, make a lot of top end power. That's actually the cam I run on my 390. I run a 356 grind on my 390 with 1-to-3 rockers on it. A 356 is good, but you got to turn them. And their 356 likes a little bigger valves on it than a small one because the top end. I'm kind of got off track here, answering some questions. I'm going to get back to the valve size and stuff and explain some of that. I've got a lot of 256 cams on here. Dylan, we don't actually cut seats for the public, but we do sell them. Get back to the valve sizes and stuff like that. The clone heads, they come, like I said a while ago, 25 and 24. You can actually put a 27 millimeter valve in this 25 seat, but you have to cut the seat. You can use, I use seat cutters and cut the seat bigger to accommodate the 27 millimeter valve because you don't want to put a 27 millimeter valve, of course this is a 28, on a 25 seat, because it covers up, it's what's called shrouding. You have to, I know you probably know this, but I still like to go over it for people because believe it or not, some people don't know this. They'll take a bigger valve and put it on a regular seat and think they've done something, and really they've cut down on power, because you have to enlarge the seat to accommodate the valve. And I've heard of some people putting 28 millimeters on these, but I've tried it, and the seat is really, really thin, and I'm afraid of it getting hot and cracking or moving or something. So 27 is as big as I'll go on a stock clone head. But you enlarge the seat with seat cutters or a new way seat cutter, or let a machine shop do it, and then port it down below, and you've enlarged everything, and everything will flow good. But I can't tell you how many people has called me and said, I put a bigger valve in my engine and my engine slowed down. What did I do wrong? And come to find out, they never cut the seat. They just took, a valve and put it in there. And, that bigger head of a valve, that's more for the air to flow around. It's still got to go through that same size seat. But now it's got to flow around, 1 or 2 or possibly 3 millimeter bigger valve. And that slows the air down. Now, one trick that we used to do when the original AKRA stock appearings come out, because you had to run stock size seats in it. The original rule says stock seats, stock size valves. We would take an exhaust valve and recut it on the bottom a little bit and put it on the intake side. It would sink it down lower, but that smaller head would flow. The air would come out the seat and have less to flow around. It would actually pick up the flow a little bit. I mean, it's not like putting bigger valves in it, but, the dyno, it would show up on the dyno, so that little trick would work, and, we used to do that a lot. And, we don't cut, valves, seats and heads. We just don't have time. Ain't that we can, it's just we don't have time. We got so much other stuff going on. But we do sell the seats. They're on our website. Should be like a 6148Y or a 6149 for a big one. Blake, I'm not 100% sure. I think it was the RTC2 and the 4 had small valves in it, but don't hold me to it. I know for a fact the 2 did, because I've got one. But I don't recall the 4. That's been a long time ago, and I've never really seen one, but I believe they do. I believe someone told me one time that they do. But you got to do a lot of work to them heads. So why not just either start with, a Hemi or Gen 3 Predator, or, just buy one of our, big valve clone heads right here that, will fit right on a Hemi. And I'm not sure, but I believe soon we're going to, cut the dowel pin hole so this will fit on a Gen 3 Predator or a Gen 1 Predator if you wanted it to. Dakota, I appreciate your order, buddy. We thank you. I'm sorry I hadn't got back with you on the messages, man. Like I say, I see them, and we get so many between me and Hunter with all of our emails and phone calls we get during the day. It's tough to keep up with all the messages, on Facebook and stuff. And but again, I apologize to you, buddy. But I hope I answered your question. Mod 136 heads, 21 valve. Tell us about room. Well, a Mod 1, that's a 310 lift cam. I'm really partial to the 304 Tilliston on these things. That's actually what I run, and mine was on an engine, and I waited to the last minute, and it's safety wired on. I didn't feel like taking it off, but I like the 304 Tillistons. Mine, the one I got now, actually come from EC, but another guy out there, Dustin Stevens at Competition Carburetors builds a good carb also, real good carb. You won't go wrong with either one of those. But some people like a little bigger carburetor. But like I say, I'm not a really big valve, guy. I don't think I've got more than. I don't think I got a single engine out there that's got a bigger than a 28 millimeter intake valve on it. And I just do my head work, and understanding how the ports work, and we make power that way, because getting back to the original topic here of valve size, when you increase the valve size, here's a stock size valve intake for a clone. This is a 25 millimeter. This is a 32. Yeah, 32. That's a big jump. And when you increase the valve size in these heads, the way I look at it, it's not really the best way to explain it, but it kind of helps people understand is, back when you was, a teenager riding your motorcycle or four-wheeler around and you went to try to siphon some gas out your dad's car, or your granddad's car or whatever, and you would use, a really big garden hose because, back then, back when I was a kid, they didn't have all these safety things. They just had a fuel tank. You could put a big hose down in. They didn't have all these safety back check valves and all. But the bigger hose you use, the more suction it would take from you to get the fuel started. In a smaller hose, it would start easily. And that's the way I look at heads and valves. The bigger head, it takes a little more what I call piston motion to get it flowing well. Sometimes, not all the time, but depends on your cam and carb combination. When you go to a really big valve, you'll lose a little bit of bottom end power. Sometimes, not all the time, but you'll gain it back on the top end because it'll continue flowing. And you have to turn them harder most of the time, or either put special grind cams or really big carbs on it. Match the carb to almost the same size as the valve. But that's why I'm not a big intake valve guy. I typically stay 28, 27. I got some 28 and a halves out there with Tillotons on them, but just that way you get enough flow through a bigger valve to accommodate more top end, but you're not losing that bottom end fuel signal that you need. Some people make it work with bigger valves. I can too, but it's just I'm not a fan of turning engines 9,000. I'd rather make power so I ain't got to turn one but 84, 85 mainly. But I got engines out there with people with 27 millimeter intake valves in them that turn them 9,000. That's just what they want to do. That's them though. But when you valve size, carburetor size, you put this big 32 on this stock appearing. I don't like what my dyno tells me on that. That's why I said before, try to keep your valve size within a millimeter or two of your carburetor size if you can. I know you can't with these. You just got to do the best you can. But when you're running real carburetors, 390s, Tillotons, Makunis, whatever, just try to keep your valve size and your carburetor size close. Yeah, 304. Have I ever tried 50 or 55 degree valve job angles? Well, it got down to about 52 degrees last week up here. We didn't get no snow, but it got down that cold. Typically this is around 75. I'm just kidding you. I've tried every angle out there. I've tried 3 angle, 4 angle, 6 angle, 3 on the seat, 2 on the valve, 5 on the seat, 3 on the valve. We're not getting the type of flow that cars and stuff deal with. I found that the best thing what I do with my seats and valves typically is 3 on the seat and 2 on the valve. I just found that works better for longevity. You can do a 4 on the seat, 3 on the valve, and according to how you do it, to how it wears, to how long it stays sealed, because these things, it also depends on what type of seats you use. If you're using regular iron seats or some type of alloy. If you're using one of those softer alloys, you can do multi-angle valve jobs on it. But with these steel and stock type seats, I found you get past 3, you get some funky wear on it unless you do everything for short term, 2-3 races. But yes, I've tried it. I've actually got a 50 degree cutter that I use sometimes. Clifford, that's right. Go big or go home. But in this case, sometimes you can go too big. Now, when you get into, all this right here, I know I went through a lot of it fast, which is why I post this. I'm still trying my best to keep these videos down below an hour. With as much as I like to talk, it's really hard to do that. Because I like to, like a teenage girl sometimes. But you can go back and look at it and go, watch it 2 or 3 times if you have to. But this is the stuff I'm telling you here is primarily for your stock appearing what I call outlaw modified. Outlaw use 390s, no cam rule, no lift rule. You can stroke, big bore, and all that. And when you get into full open stuff, to where, strokes, 3-inch bore, you know, 36, 38 millimeter valves, gigantic carburetors, welding the blocks up real big and all, that's a whole nother conversation, because that is where extensive head work comes in. And really specified, special grind cams. And I don't do a whole lot of work like it. It takes so much time. I'm not saying I can't. I've done it plenty of times, but when you get into all this block welding and 3-inch bore stuff, re-sleeving, that is stuffing a whole lot of equipment into a wet paper bag. It's like trying to carry, rocks in a wet paper bag. You might get a little ways with it, but it's gonna bust. That bag's gonna come open. And I don't care how much welding you do, something's gonna give. These things are not designed for stuff like that. If you want to do 3-inch big stroker stuff, go buy you one of JR's, billet animal blocks, and start with something good instead of, even a Honda block. Just don't live up with welded and all this stuff, not long. That's why I primarily stay in the stock appearing, outlaw type stuff, because you can do bolt-on braces and stuff like that, and they usually last pretty good. I've got some engines that have been out there for, strokers that, are 2.8 bores, been out there for a while, running hard for a while. I understand what you mean, D&Q stuff. Dakota again. If you're talking about a clone, wanting a little more stroke out of it, one thing you can do is use a Predator crankshaft in it. Predator crankshafts will work in a clone. And I got in trouble the other weekend for telling people that people's using Predator crankshafts in AKRA and NKA type clone engines, which is the truth, they are. But a Predator crankshaft will fit in a clone, but you must use the Predator rod and a Predator flywheel. If you use the Gen 3 crank, you got to use a 6625 flywheel. If you use the Hemi crank, you got to use a Hemi flywheel. They will fit, but you got to use a Predator connecting rod. And depending on what clone block you got, you may have a pop-up problem. Of course, if you use a Wiseco piston in one of our 3.707 rods, you got to cut the piston anyway, so you can set it where you want to. But if you're talking about a Predator engine, the only thing above the Predator crankshaft is the billet crank. Sorry, you can. Some people has taken the Predator crankshaft, which is around 40 thousandths longer stroke than the clone, and offset grinding it to accept the clone connecting rod, and that'll add probably about another 50 thousandths to it, maybe. So you're looking at a 60, 70 thousandths longer stroke, but the crankshaft has a hole in it, and when you offset grind it, that thins one area of it, because you offset grind mainly on the bottom, and that makes that hole closer to the bottom, and it makes it a little more prone to break. But that's the only other thing I know of. Yeah, save your motor on those 3-inch bores. If you want to go 3-inch, just start with something designed to go 3-inch. Either go to a big block or buy a billet animal block, because they don't break. The crankshafts and rods break in them because you're putting so much pressure on everything, and the blocks don't break. But something's got to give. In these engines, when you're pumping all this compression to it on these 1-inch journals, and 8,000-9,000 RPMs with 16-to-1 compression, and these big carbs and cams, that's a lot of pressure on these engines, and something's got to give. So that's why I tell people, just go with a billet block and you'll be a lot better, even a big block one. But back to the original thing again, me getting off topic here. Cam profiles. I was telling you that I like the moderate 280 so lift on and big duration with stock appearing type carburetors. Now, when I go to Tilliston carburetors, I like the 308, the 310s. Isky's got a good 310 cam that goes really good with Mikuni's and Tillistons. The reason I like the higher duration on the smaller carbs, and even a 390 carb to me is still a stock carburetor, even though it's a bigger carburetor and we do all the work to it. It still works like a stock carburetor. So I like the higher duration cams with them also. But when I go to a Tilliston, which is, in my opinion, a racing carburetor, it's designed for this type of stuff, or may not originally, but they are now. So you want a more moderate duration, higher lift. Those carburetors are going to work pretty much on anything, whether you put them on, high duration, low duration, moderate lift, low lift, high lift, whatever. Tilliston and Mikuni, they're going to work on pretty much anything. They're just going to outflow everything. But I like the 308, 310 lifts, and I hadn't done but a few engines going back to that 356 cam there with a Tilliston. You had to turn it. I mean, it didn't start running until about 7,500, and you could feel it lay you back in the seat. So that's the more lift. Something I forgot to say earlier, but when it comes to heads and everything and cams, the more lift and duration you run in these cams, the more RPMs it's going to require to get the power out of it. Take for instance, a lot of people like to run Mod 2s as a cheater cam. Cheater cam, that's a crazy term, but a cheater cam in these box stock engines. It'll make more power, but you got to turn it harder because that's a higher. The Mod 2 is a stock lift cam, but it's got a lot more duration and than the CL2s and 3s and BSP cams do, and also the power curve is going to be a little higher in the RPM range than usually the 10.8 springs will allow it to do. So if you're going to use Mod 2 cam for a cheater cam or whatever you want to call it, call up dyno and get them to grind you one with about 2 or 4 degrees advance in it, because what that's going to do is going to move the power curve down a little bit. Remember when advancing and retarding cams, advance is going to get to the power curve quicker. Retarding a cam is going to slow the power curve down. It's going to take longer to get to the power curve. It's going to move the power curve into upper RPMs. So if you're going to use a Mod 2 cam like that, in these stock type engines with 10.8 springs, get them to grind you one at about a 4 degree advance, and that'll move the power curve down so you don't have to turn it 7,000 to make it run. It'll make power in the 64 to 66, 7 range like it needs to. Not that we've done that or anything. I've never built engines like that. That's what's in Shannon's engine. Tim, yeah, I do quite a few 390 carbs, but when I build them for modified, I do them primarily on methanol. I don't know what it is about these carbs. They just don't like gasoline. They don't like race gas. They don't like pump gas. They don't like oxygenated gas. They don't like anything. The one I got on my dyno right now is a outlaw style engine, and the guy wanted a 390 on race gas. And I worked on it a little while ago. I've done my normal thing that I've done with other gas carburetors, but it won't run on this, so I got to do something different. Methanol, for some reason, they just run better. And not many builders admit stuff like that when they can't do something. I'm not saying I can't do it. I just hadn't worked with it enough to know what to do. And I know other builders that work with them all the time, they have the same problem. They just tend to run better on methanol. So we'll do one, but it'll be on methanol. It'll be a 900 Venturi, and polished and everything. Intake links on 390s. I hadn't, but a lot of other people have. We make the little adapter for the 390 to go on, and that's the one I run. I like that, that shorter one like that. Some people use the long one. We hadn't played with it much. I know other people that have, and they've had success with it. Corey, if you have a 390 with an F275, is it a good cam for a 390? I'm assuming you're talking about a GX 390 big block engine. It depends, if you're gonna run the stock style carburetor on it, bored out or whatever, I'd say it'd be a good cam for it. You're gonna have, a lot of duration, low lift. So I'm gonna be about a 280 lift, which is kind of small for a big block, but it's gonna keep everything on the bottom end. And it'll make a lot of power, in the 45 to 6500 range, a lot of power. We typically with our 390s, of course, we're building them a little more modified, run a lot more lift on it than that, but I don't see why it wouldn't be if you're using a stock style carburetor. Tim, that's the next thing I was fixing to get into. I'm jumping all over the place tonight for some reason. I don't know. I can't stay on topic. I may go back over some of this stuff, but big lift cam versus smaller lift with 1 to 3s. As you heard me say earlier, I like, in the Hemi style engines, and I've actually gotten to where I run them in other type of engines also. The CM cam from Dyno, which is 265 lift, and I'll use, I'll use ratio rockers on it. The reason I like doing that is because if you've got like a 356 cam, we'll just go with that again, with 1-to-1 rockers, you got certain ramp speeds and, duration, center lines, and all that stuff. And when you put ratio rockers on any cam, it adds, a 1 to 2 adds about 20% more lift, and a 1 to 3 adds about 30% more lift. On the 265 cam at the valve, you're looking, I believe, around 330 with a 1 to 3, and more people want to text me right now, but you're looking around 330, 340 lift at the valve with a 265 cam with 1 to 3 rocker. Not only does it add more lift, but it speeds up the ramp. It doesn't necessarily add more duration. I've tested this several times, and it kind of fools the engine to think it's got more duration, but technically it don't. There's a lot of debate on that, but I like using cams like a 265, 270 with lower duration with 1 to 3 rockers versus a big cam with 1-to-1s, just because of the ramp speed. That ramp speed, when that valve opens quicker, it still opens the same, I'm sorry, it opens more because it gives you 30% more lift, but it does it faster, and that fast opening helps the intake draw a lot. But my preference is, a smaller cam, 250, 260, 270 lift with around 235 to maybe 245 duration with 1 to 3s. That's what I like using on, some 390s, but like with Tillison's, that works really good, in my opinion. My dyno says it does anytime. The air inlet holes on 390 carbs. We work 390 carbs the same way we do any other carb. We work on all the air holes, the air bleeds, Welch plugs, the air holes in the emulsion tube. I got about 3 different designs or 3 different formulas I use depending on what type of engine you are. If you want a 390 like with a Mod 2 or a 265 lift cam, I got one type of thing I do. Then I got one for my F275 type cams, and I got one for people like running a 308. It's just there's different cams, different ramp speeds, and different durations. It causes things to work a little different, so I work carbs a little different. That's why 390's this work is not on the website. You have to call in and talk to me about that, and I get all your information, what you're doing with the engine, how you building it, what you're using it for, and that's what I build your carb off of. And typically, they run good right out the box. Scott, talking about timing, ignition timing with a Mod 1 on gas. Are you using race gas? Well, 11-to-1, I imagine you are using race gas. Typically, on gasoline engines, I don't go over 32 degrees timing. And this can go back to my Flywheel video I done a couple weeks ago. We get the question a lot, why did we set the timing on our flywheels at 32 degrees. Well, it wasn't just a number we pulled out the air. It's something that, we researched, which is, our middle name, ARC. The R in ARC stands for research, in case you didn't know that. We talked to a lot of other builders and stuff around, and I don't go over 32 degrees on modified engines because you're turning a lot more RPMs. You're getting in that 7,500, 8,000 range, and gasoline burns really, really quickly. It atomizes very, very well, very fine. Even race gas is very fine atomization, and it burns quickly. And if you've got 34, 35 degrees, which is where we run box stockers, which is confusing, I'll tell you why in a minute. On modifieds, I stay under 32 because you get them high RPMs. The carburetor, 390 carburetors, even Tillotons, they lean out the more they turn. That's why you adjust the jetting or you adjust the screw on a Tillotson to get the RPMs going up higher. The carburetor's leaning out, and you don't want all that high timing up top because it'll burn the fuel a little too quickly, and the engine will, number one, lose power, number two, it'll run hot. So I do not go over 32 degrees on any of these gasoline, whether it's race gas, oxygenated, or pump gas, if it's going to be a modified. Which, when I say modified, its common RPMs are going to be above 7,000 on the racetrack. If I know for a fact we're running a Mod 2 F275 or whatever cam, I know the max RPM on it's going to be 75 to 8,000, somewhere in that range. 32 degrees, that's all I run. And the dyno again tells me that's the correct thing to do. Now, on the box stocks, 32 degrees is actually the bottom end of where you'd run timing. We run timing on our box stocks 34, 36, sometimes 38, with plate engines. And what we're doing there, why we run so much more timing, mainly because the RPM level is below 7,000. That's 68 to 72 range in there is where you start getting that the carburetor's leaning out too much and the timing might be too high area. Way past that for sure, but right around that 7,000 RPM mark is where it's starting to burn it too fast if your time is too high, which we're getting to that now because we're starting to turn these engines 68 plus. So that's where flywheels like ours, where you can tune with the coil gap, plays a big difference in making mid-range and top-end power. But 32 is on the bottom scale of the stock class engines and on the upper scale of the mod engine. So that was a number to meet right in the middle. That's why we set our 6619s and 25s and 02s and everything for the clones and Predator and Hondas at 32 because it meets in the middle of both spectrums. You can take that flywheel out of the box, put it on a stocker, put it on a modified, whatever, and that 32 degrees timing is going to be middle of the road to what you need. If we just set it at 34, or whatever, the modified guys would have to either tune their engines to run really rich on top, which you don't want to do that with gasoline, or they'll run hot. You gotta make products for everybody, not just one specific class or organization or whatever, because people use the 6619s on modifieds. I got a lot of modifieds with 6619s on. Just because it's modified don't mean you got to run a little flywheel. It depends on what you're doing. But that answers that question. How I got on that, I don't know. Oh, modified on gas, yeah. I don't run over 32. If you're running a big carburetor, Tillotson, I'd say 31 to 32. If you're running a 390 or something like that, somewhere around 30 or 31 degrees. If you're using one of our flywheels, 50, 60 degrees coil, or thousandths of coil gap. That's what you'll need on that. We run in the D and Q series on gasoline. We also had good results from methanol too. Methanol should be better. Tim, 99% of the time, if methanol is tuned correctly, you're looking at, I'm going to say it's 10-12% increase in power overall versus gas. Now, I do have some gasoline fuel, this race gas, this oxygenated, which is what I'm running out here on this other engine, that on my dyno, I've made just as much power with it as I can with methanol. It's rough on the engines. It runs really dry in the cylinders.
You got to flush it every time you get done running, or it'll dissolve the fuel pump, and you'll go to races next week and the engine won't start. Or if it's in the carburetor, it corrodes like methanol does. But it's capable of making the same amount of power as methanol. But methanol, another advantage to it, other than it makes more power than typical gas or race gas, is it runs cooler. You know. But you do need bigger jets of methanol, almost twice the size, and you need more timing because it burns slower. I've done something with D&Q karting. I get some messages from. I forget what I've done for them, but that sounds familiar to me. Sorry if I don't remember it, but I'm halfway losing my mind today. Need to acquire some brass plugs. What, Travis, why would you need brass plugs to make a car work well? Just a curious question. I mean, I'm not saying I don't use stuff here and there. I'm just, you can message me if you don't want to put it on here, and I'll tell you what I use them for. Oh, a clone motor F275 GX390 carb. I forget your original question. Let me go back. Yeah, okay. Yeah, F275 and GX390 carbs, that's a good combination. Like I said, the 390 carbs, they'll run good with 308. Don't get me wrong. I've got some engines, I run against engines with 390 carb and 308s that run very well. But my package, I like the F275 better. That's going to be a good one. I'd put dual springs on them F275s because they got a fast ramp, even with one-to-ones. Troy, no, I don't see any balancing issues with cams. Take out the compression release. They're so close to the center of the cam, I don't think it matters to. But to be honest with you, I've really never checked. Because it's so close to the center of the cam, it shouldn't affect anything. If so, it's very small. But Tim, answer my question. Dakota putting a non-adjustable flywheels on a billet crank. I lap it on and set my timing with a degree wheel off the firing point. Zero it out, roll it back to the firing point, set my timing, and lock it down. Just like I done in the video. The video I done been about a year ago. It's on, should be way down on this page somewhere, but it's on YouTube and it's on our website, arcracing.com. Go to any flywheel and go down to where it says video, click on it, and it'll show you how to install a flywheel without a key, which is what I do 99% of the time. I do not run keys. But you just lap it on, set it with a degree wheel, and torque it down to, depending on what flywheel you're using, the 66, 19, 25s, the big adjustables, they all take 65 foot-pounds of torque, and the ultralights, the 6602s, are really small. I don't have one here. Flywheels, just torque them down to 54, maybe 55 at the most. They're small, don't need a lot of torque. But just watch the video, it'll show you all that. Yeah, I have to run gasoline. Travis, they sometimes on these 390 carbs, I'll use things to get down into, the ports, the air passages on these carbs to make them bigger or even smaller, depending on what you want to do. We can message about that later because that's something that's, it'll take a lot of time to actually explain. Rebecca, you can use methanol in any engine. You just have to change the setup. Methanol is, it's basically kind of like a self-oxygenating fuel. It doesn't need as much oxygen to burn as gasoline does. So if you got a carburetor where you're running a 36 main jet, that same carburetor can be tuned for methanol just by changing the jets most of the time. Ours will anyway. our 675s can go from gas to methanol just by changing the jets. But you'll have to go to a much bigger jet. Most of the time in those cars, we run a 57, 58 main. You're getting a lot more fuel through there. And this fuel is denser and burns, not denser, but it burns slower. Therefore, you need more timing. Typically with methanol, stock Empyreans, I run around 34, sometimes 36. 390s and Tillisons, I usually start at 36. But you can run it in any type of engine. You can run it in your car if it was tuned for it. It just uses more. You'll use almost twice as much methanol as you would gasoline on any given night. But any engine, no problem. I have completely forgot where I was at with this other stuff now. Anyway, back to the head. I was talking about valve seat size earlier. Why I support it, cut your seats and, getting everything. Somebody brought up valve angles a while ago. Whether you enlarge the seat yourself or you have bigger ones put in, one thing that's important to do is to, cut the seats. And, we cut them with cutter and then grind them with stones. But one thing you're looking for is, I don't know if I got something small enough to point with here or not. I'll use my pointer here. Is on the valve. When the valve, I don't do a lot of lapping. I don't use lapping compound hardly at all. I barely use it. I grind the face of my valves with my angle, and then I grind my seats to match so that when it sits down, it pretty much seals itself. But I'll take some ultra fine compound and I'll turn it 2 or 3 times just to see where it's making contact and make sure it's where I want it, and that's it. But you want that contact line pretty close on the intake valve. You want it as close to the top as you can get it without it going over. You want that line to be thin, and you want it to run pretty close around the top. That's something in a modified engine, you got the luxury of setting those. In the box stocks, we typically, get them out there to the edge, but sometimes in heads that have been run for a while, it'll get too far out here, and, it sinks the valve, and then you run into tech barn issues. But with modifieds, you actually got the luxury of setting the contact area pretty much where you want it. And on the intake, you want it right out here close to the edge and fairly thin. Another debatable thing that people debate about all the time, a thick contact area versus a thin. I like a thin on the intake because that thin area is going to have more pressure on it because of the valve spring. That little small area is small, and it puts more pressure on the valve, helps seal it better, and plus you're less prone to get a foreign object hung in it. The carburetors, sometimes a piece of the air filter, the metal, something come off, some brass out the carburetor that you didn't clean out good, and it takes 2 races for it to come out, whatever. I've seen some crazy stuff happen. But a big wide, if it gets caught in between there, it'll actually embed, and the valve not sealed no more, and the engine usually shuts off because it opens it up. But you're less prone to get stuff hung in between it. You get more pressure points, and as it wears, usually it'll widen out just a little bit as it wears to keep itself sealed. Now on the exhaust, I try to set them, kind of in the middle. They ain't got to be the very top, but I set them kind of in the middle. And you want a little bit wider, not as wide as the whole face of the valve, just a little bit wider contact area over there because you get heat transfer. When a valve shuts, heat transfers, and it's supposed to keep the valve cooler. That's just what I've always been taught and told. But, when you go to, I just completely forgot what I was fixing to say. I guess I'm at that age to where if I get off topic, I really, really get off topic. Because I honestly forgot what I was fixing to say. One other thing I wanted to, kind of go over, like I said, I know I've been through this fast, and that's a problem I have, is just, I'm used to being on the telephone with people and trying to explain stuff as quickly as I can to get on to the next person, because sometimes there's people waiting on hold for a while to talk to us. Cutting your seats and stuff and your angles, don't go crazy with lapping compound. Some people they'll have this nice seat work done, and nice angles on the valves, everything looks good, and then they'll take the compound and just sit there and grind and grind and grind and grind. That actually, it may seal the valve, but a lot of cases it hurts flow because that compound gets down there and grinds little ridges. Sometimes you can see them with your eye, a lot of times you can feel them with your nail, and it interrupts flow. You want to, if a valve is cut true and is ground, with stones or whatever, ground true, technically you shouldn't need any lapping compound. I just do it to make sure my contact patch is where I want it. If it's not, I change it. But people get on there with this compound, they just go and go and go and go and go and go, and I've seen videos of people, and I just cringe seeing how hard they grind these things because it cuts ridges in it, and it may seal now, but because of those ridges, as it wears, it may go into one of the ridges, and the valve ain't sealed anymore. You want a good, smooth, not really mirror glass finish, but you want a good, smooth finish for them to mate against, and you get better longevity that way. But a lot of people mess up really good heads with lapping compound, and some people, that's the only way they got to seal it. They get engines in, and they want to make sure the valves are sealing, so that's the only way they got to do it. If that's all you got to do, that's all you got to do. I'm not telling you can't do that, you're technically wrong. I'm just saying don't go overboard with it because that hurts flow. One more thing on heads I want to get to real quick. A lot of people, like to cut heads. I see some people cutting them completely flat, trying to gain compression and all, and that's a topic I've fought with people a lot about, small chamber heads, big chamber heads, but that's another discussion. But when you cut these heads, you cut, a good 60 thousandths off this one probably. What that does, when you cut these heads, it lowers it down closer to the block, which makes, technically, your push rods longer because you're not cutting the push rods down with it. This is just a demonstration. They don't stick out that far. But when you cut that head down 60 thousandths, your push rod gets longer. And one thing that will do is interrupt the rocker angle. Now, this ain't going to be too precise here, but just trying to kind of show you some stuff. When you cut that head down, I can't do it that way. I don't have to do it in my hands. Sorry, technical difficulties. But when you cut that head down, here's the rocker assembly. We're just using a stock rocker for example. Most time I hope you're gonna be using some type of billet roller rockers like the gauge rockers that we sell. They the best out there. That's why we sell them. But when you cut that head down, it makes the push rod longer, which messes up your rocker angle. What you want on a rocker angle, there's no real set in stone angle. I've never found. But you do want some type of, the push rod side, which is the push rod. I had that on there perfect, and I had to move it, didn't I? I won't never get it back on there. Hey, y'all, tune in and watch Jody fumble around with this stuff. Butterfingers. Anyway, what it does, when you want typically the back side of the rocker on the, what I call the push rod side, you want a slightly downward angle. You don't want it down like this. Of course it'd be like that. Or you definitely don't want it higher than the valve side. You want the push rod side to be slightly angled down. There's no real set in stone of what actually degree you want. I just eyeball it, and if it's down a little bit, it's fine. But when you cut these heads, I've actually seen people's engines at the track that their valve, the rockers are in it like that on 0 lift. And when that thing goes down, one thing it'll do is it'll bottom the rocker out and bend and break the stud. But with rollers, it can actually roll off the valve. And it rolls off the valve, then you got a lot of broken stuff there. But that's just kind of one thing I like to tell people when they go to cutting on these heads. We have different length push rods. This is a standard length. We've got some, I think, that's 20 thousandths shorter or whatever. I don't know off the top of my head. And we've also got some that's cut to length that you can, they come really long and you can set your angles where you want it. Kind of tricky to do sometimes for some people, but rocker angle is important. You don't want too much either way, because it could cause bind issues, and it could cause failure. There was something else I wanted to do, and I done forgot it. I have completely lost my train of thought here. But anyway, that's kind of the gist of it. Modified stuff. Carburation, head work, valve size, cam size. I run through it fast, probably too fast. Y'all can go back and look at this later on. If we have a big cam, do we need a bigger cranking rod? No. Cams typically don't have anything to do with stroke bore. You can put 356 or ratio rockers, 400 lift, in these engines with stock bore and stroke. You just need, it's all about the head work. All a bigger bore and a longer stroke does is complement the things that you've done in the head and the carburetor. It's got to breathe. You can have all these big biceps and big arms. If you can't breathe, you're not going to perform well. I don't care how big your muscles are. But big bores and big strokes, they complement what you've done to the head and the carb. That's where the power is made at, in the head and in the carb. That's why people that build their own circle track engines or drag engines, they'll build their own short block. They'll buy Eagle cranks and rods and build their 350, and they'll call up Brodex heads and order heads and intakes from them, because that's how the engine breathes. That's where the power comes from. Those Brodex heads are built to breathe, and that's all the bottom end stuff does. It just complements the top end. But there's no set in stone about a bigger cam, bigger crank. It just helps it. Oh, Frank. Bob's not my name, right? That's an inside joke, y'all. Too bad stock classes don't let you cut one side. Cut one side of what? Let me go back and see what you asked earlier, because I'm... Oh, okay. Talking about the carburetor. There's a lot of stuff you can do to the carburetors now. Especially with that new carb that AKRA is allowing, the Tilliston carb. I've got one. It's an alright carb. I hadn't really tested it a lot. I've just made a couple pulls with it, but there's some big holes in that carb. The air passages are huge. And, ironically, one of my carbs got tossed out earlier in the year for the exact same thing that's on these carbs that come from the factory, but that's neither here nor there. Got 20. Well, Frank, I've cut 30, 40 thousandths off of heads and still use stock link push rods. You can. It just depends on what kind of valves and stuff you're using, because and how much you've sunk the valves and this that. Because some of these stainless valves are pretty thick, and I usually cut them down, thin them up a little bit, and then I cut the seats a little deeper. So the 20 thousandths I cut off my head, I can sometimes make up in the valve and the seat by lowering it. So take that in consideration also. But no matter how much you cut your head, or what if you buy the head from somebody, always put it on and start with, unless they tell you to go to another push rod, start with a stock link push rod, put everything on, zero it out, on top dead center, and just look at your angles. You just want a slightly downward angle. That's all you need. Travis talking about cutting the push rods in the stock class. I'm wanting to say there's some shorter. They got a limit on the push rod length, or one organization does, and they some people out there that's got minimum length push rods on. We've gotten a hold of some, and used them in some engines. I don't think we sell them right now. we'll need to get some, I guess. But I think there's two different lengths. You got the standard length and you got the minimum one out there. But we can get them. Well, KT McCann's calling me a cheater. I build your engines, so I guess you're a cheater too. So watch who you call a cheater there, brah. There's two types of people on a racetrack. This is something I learned from Smokey. In one of my last videos, I told you my background with Smokey, which ain't much with me, with my granddad. He said there's two types of people on a racetrack. There's cheaters and losers. So either get on the bandwagon or watch from the stands, I guess. Good deal, good deal. All right, well, I'll look at a few more questions here if somebody's got them. But I'm probably going to wrap it up because I've gone through so much stuff so fast that I'm about to go back and watch it myself to actually see what I've done. But don't forget that we carry bigger heads now for the clone. And we've had them for a little while. We ain't advertised them that much. If you're looking for a Hemi replacement head or a bigger valve head for your clone, look us up. They on the website. 27, 25 valves already in it. You poured it. Makes a really good, modified stock appearing head. Any other questions y'all got on cams or anything, hit me up. Oh Lord, I'm starting to get some of my local crowd in here now. This might not get good. Some of the other stuff I've been reading this week, but it just gotta breathe, people. Carburation, head work, valves, cams, gotta breathe. You don't have to build these big gigantic stroker engines. I mean, I know I want to sell stroker crankshafts because we're the only people that make them, so we want to sell them. But I'll tell you, you can make really good horsepower without stroking one. Some of the best engines I've got, some of the best engines I've seen, had stock stroke cranks. I think if those of y'all that's on Bob's 4Cycle, I think it was this time last year, they had some people calling out one another about who can build the baddest engine. I'm not naming, I'll name one name on it, but I'm not naming all the names. But one of the engines, I think he finished second with it, had a stock stroke crankshaft in it. I mean, it was a 3-inch bore engine, I believe. I could be mistaken, but I want to say it was a stock stroke. And this sucker made right at 30 horsepower with a stock stroke crankshaft. So it's all about head work. It's got to get the air into the engine before it can compress it, before you get combustion. That's what the combustion creates the cylinder pressure. That's what pushes that piston down. That's like when you do a push-up, you pushing down, you making the power, but you've got to get the air into the engine to create the power. More air in, more power to the ground. This is Christmas is this weekend. And that's why I wanted to kind of do this show right before Christmas. Just to tell everybody, all of our customers, whether you're a customer of ours or not, if you're on this page, you're watching these videos, Merry Christmas to everyone. Hope you have a good Christmas season. Hope your New Year's good, and just thank you for supporting ARC. We work really hard, really hard on our products, to get the best products out there, and it shows, because we have loyal customers, and we just want to say thank you, and hope you all have a Merry Christmas also. Can't wait to get that ARC power. It's sitting on the table, buddy. It's sitting on the table. Been doing videos for quite a while. Another Merry Christmas. Yep, Merry Christmas. Hemi versus non-Hemi. What do you want to know? One's a Hemi, one's not. Does that answer your question? We're looking at stock engines, or I guess you're assuming Hemi versus non-Hemi and modifieds. That kind of goes either way here. I like the Hemi head. A lot of people don't. I really like it. because the way the valve angle is on it, when you port it, the way we do port work and all, it really flows good and really has a very broad power band. I don't weld them up. I usually don't cut no more than about 40 thousandths off them. A lot of times I'll dome my piston so it'll go up in it to build a little more static compression. But I like the Hemi as far as modifiers, and Mr. Dirt Life. If you race at the tracks around here, a lot of my stuff races at, and if you notice, most of my modifieds, they're Hemi head engines, and maybe different stuff on the bottom end, but I like the Hemi because if you can port. Now, when it comes to the stock classes, like if the series that runs out in the Midwest that I've mentioned many times on this program, the Mars series, they use Predator engines. And if we're going to build a Mars engine to run out there, I typically like to use the RTC 6 or 8 style engine because the valve train is a little bit lighter. That's really the only reason, is the Hemi's got a heavy valve train that works good and modified. They're very stout. The valves, the rocker arms and all, but they're a little heavy for the 10.8 springs. So therefore, I like to use the RTC 6 and the Mars Pro Stock style engines. But the modified that I'm working on now for somebody that's going to be here local is a Hemi head engine. It's stroked, it's bored a little bit. Should be a good one. I hope it is. It'll be a Tilson engine. He'll be coming running with you, Mr. Dirt Life. So get ready. It's on the way. But anyway, been in here for a little over an hour. I've cut it down a little bit. If there ain't no more questions, I'm going to wrap it up, post this video up. I'll go back and watch it and decide if I'm going to delete it or not because I went through stuff so fast. What if you need to keep all stock air boxes? I hate these questions. The stock airbox stuff, they some tracks that I built for, one sort of local, and I've sent some off that, it's basically a stock appearing class with the exception of you got to run the stock airbox, and most of them allow the Winnie pipe. They don't run the stock exhaust, but if you can modify it, with, you got to run the stock airbox. If you can modify the airbox, you can make a pretty decent engine. But if you've got to run the stock exhaust and the stock airbox without modifying it, man, you cut way down on air and, really high duration cams, some port work if you can do it. You're going to make low end power. You're not going to make a lot of top end power. 64, 65-ish. Even with good carburetors on, that's going to be all you can do. I've built a couple of them. I haven't done a whole lot of modified style stock airbox engines. I've done a few stockers. And the Hemi, Tim, they work pretty good with the stock airbox because you're not turning them very. You can't turn them, but if you're running stock airbox, stock exhaust, typically they make you run the bone stock springs, and even with good 10.8s, 53, 55, maybe 56 is all you can turn them. And when I was talking about the Mars Pro Stocks, they turn them engines. They can run Mod 2 cams in, if I believe right. They turn them 68 to 7,000. And those Hemis have a hard time with 10.8 springs with them heavy rocker arms keeping up with that Mod 2 cam. But in the stock, like you say, true box stock, the Hemi's probably just as good as the other one because you can't turn them hard anyway. Yeah, about 55 is all you're going to turn, stock airbox stuff. Now, they got the track, the big asphalt track that's up here above us in Cordele, Watermelon, Capital Speedway, I think it is. It's a 3/8 mile asphalt oval, and they run carts on it. I've hit that wall in a car before. I know how hard it is. Them boys are brave. And there's a couple girls running too. Them they brave. But they've got last year they had what was called a Predator box stock class. And they didn't really check nothing on it because they said they had to run the stock airbox and a weenie pipe. By the end of the season, the box stock Predator class was about a second faster than the stock appearing class. They was they was motivating around that track. I've got some videos, cell phone videos when I was up there. I think it's on my personal page. I may put up one night, but they are motivating around there in so-called box stock engines. But I ain't going around that track on a go-kart. Sorry, it ain't happening. I done got too old, and it hurts too bad when I wreck. But all right, like I say, I flew through it too fast. Again, I'm sorry. I just got a lot on my mind with the dyno stuff out there and new products and stuff that we're working on. I just kind of not in the right mindset tonight. Yeah, more duration will help. But anyway, I just want to say thank you to everybody that is tuned in to the shows this year. We'll start them again after the first of the year, and try to stay, every Thursday night, every other Thursday night, every 2 weeks, like I've been doing, unless something comes up, and I'll let everybody know way ahead of time, like I've been doing when we have a show and when something comes up. But I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and all the questions, and I usually get a lot more questions after the video goes off, either through my emails or stuff. But I just want to wish everyone wish everyone a Merry Christmas. Hope you have a Happy New Year, and just thank you to our customers. We really appreciate it. We got a lot of good loyal customers out there, and we don't forget it when people call up. They continue to call up, or I see people pop up all the time on these videos, multiple videos. We don't forget that. We know who our customer base is, and we work hard, for our customers. We're always, I say in every video, we're always working on new products. We're always working to make our products better. I mean, even though we've got, the best products in the business, they can still be made better. And that's something we're working on now. We've got a few of our products that, we cut apart and tried new things and looked at new things. And I'm almost about sick of seeing the dyno. I've dynoed so much in the past couple of months with, new product testing. But we found a lot of stuff, and I think next year a lot of people's, going to be impressed with the stuff that we've done. And but again, I just want to say thank y'all, and we'll see y'all next time. Y'all have a good night.